This is the next episode of All Apologies, Guilt, and Blame. It's the third podcast I've done. We're kind of in the middle of it. And it's the third book that I did in the series Life Beyond Silence. The first book was titled Not a Victim, a Survivor, Life Beyond Domestic Violence and Rape. The second was titled Losing Touch with Reality, both of which I've done podcasts on, and you can find them here on YouTube. You can find definitely the first book in many places like Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, different things like that. I wrote all the books a good while back. And in the podcast, I'm trying to give listeners an avenue in which they can comment or ask questions, and I'll do my best to answer. It's kind of therapy for me to kind of open up the story again, maybe finalize it in some way. I kind of have not only quoted what I've written, but I've added to it. So you're getting probably a more open version than what was written so long ago. And a caught up version, I guess you would say. Because I'm adding how I feel now. Anyway, so let's get back into All Apologies. Thank you. Okay, so in the last episode, I talked about my online dating story and meeting Jamie. I kind of put on hold talking about JK. He was after Joe, and they actually knew each other and seemed pretty fond of each other. I remember Joe said JK was a nice guy and he probably would treat me right. He didn't doubt that he wouldn't. And to be honest, JK was a nice guy. When I first met him, I helped him with his divorce from his second wife. And JK had a lot of history, a lot of demons that he had in his past. I guess you would say that he was trying to get over. There was issues with his oldest child from his first wife. And his second wife also had issues. She was bipolar and actually had ended up leaving him for a friend of his, someone that, was welcome in their home. Let's say that. And the whole family on his side was a mixture of personalities, challenging lives. JK had been not only brought up in poverty, but his whole family had been stricken, I would say, with having to live off of state funds. Which is, in my book, no shame, of course. If you need it, you need it. But when I got with him, I thought I was doing good by helping him and by assisting him with his second divorce, with an issue with Subway. And I won't say that JK didn't have any initiative. He did. He wanted to possibly have his own Subway someday. He wanted to be a good dad. He wanted to stay very much attached to his family, which there's nothing wrong with that, except for that's never been my ability, I guess you would say. And I did tell him about my whole life and my issues and things that I had been through, just as he did me. And actually, his oldest daughter, who was in her teen years, and him came to live with me. And he had visitation with his second daughter, and she would come pretty much every other weekend. At first, everything was fine. He was even with me when my grandchild was born by my third daughter. He was welcomed by my family. They both were. My family really didn't know his second daughter, but everybody got to know his oldest and him. And things went pretty well. But after being with him for a good bit, I was starting to see red flags, I guess, of the fact that he couldn't or didn't have the ability to I guess, for lack of a better word, not that I didn't expect him to be close to his family, but I wanted him to have goals and dreams and to be a better person. You know, distance himself from what he had been used to. And I guess you could say I wanted him to try to learn the ability to be more professional and less kind of goofballish. And I don't mean that badly. I really don't. It probably sounds bad, but JK could have really, been more professional and look to step up from what his whole family was used to. You know, he was living with me in a different town, and a different town, kind of, from my aspect, gives you the ability to start over and to live a different lifestyle, life, period. But I think he wanted to not have goals and aspirations like I did. I think he wanted, or he felt fine in working at Subway and living hand to mouth. And even though I've done that for years, where I literally barely stayed above water, I didn't want that for myself, especially getting older. I wanted a more comfortable lifestyle. I wanted to stay at home, be more peaceful. And to be honest, I mean, I loved his dad. I thought his dad was charming in every way. But to be honest, they have a lot of kids in their family, and there's a lot of drama in their family, just like in mine, except I try to stay away from all that because I just seem to make it worse with all my drama. So I try to, like, not go there. And I was hoping that we could just kind of melt into a quiet lifestyle in a different area. But it didn't work out like that. One day when I was at work, I actually had picked up breakfast for him and his daughter and said my goodbyes and went to work. And then I kept calling and I wasn't getting an answer. And I didn't live far from work, like a block. So I put my work on hold. I ran home. And I guess I must have got home probably around lunch. And he wasn't there. She wasn't there. And again, my belongings had been stripped of any sign of them. And some of my stuff had been taken, which I was not fond of. But I just remember thinking, are you kidding me? Like, is this the going thing where men leave women in the, Mission Impossible style, where they're like there 1 minute and gone the next? I just couldn't believe that. I mean, I get it. Some women do that to men. But now is the going trend that men do it to women? And it was funny because after I finally reached him, which took a little bit, but after he finally answered the phone, I was like, what in the hell? And he was like, I'm moving to Georgia, be with my family. We've gone. You can't talk me into turning back because I'm with them. They were leaving today and they stopped by to get me and my daughter, and we're already close to Nashville. And I'm like, what in the world? And he just basically said he didn't want to go through it with me. He didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to have a bunch of drama. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, and I remember crying. I remember being hurt by it. And I remember he was crying on the other end of the phone, but he was like, I just don't want to be with you anymore. Okay. What else was I going to say? I just said, oh, okay. But I did find out that he had taken some stuff of mine, and I filed a police report, and he sent them pretty fast back to me, which I was grateful of. And I just was like, well, there you go. That's it. I'm done. Maybe I'll meet somebody someday, but I'm done. And at the time, let's see, at the time I was probably, yeah, it's about, give or take, it was, let me think, give or take, it was probably 11 years ago. So the most recent, what, I guess the most recent relationship, you would say, was 11 years ago. And yeah, that was my final breaking point. You try to do good for somebody, and then you feel like a fool. And 11 years ago, I would have been like 51. And yeah, that's pretty much how I felt, a fool. And I knew that if Joe had still been around, he would have been quickly by my side to tell me he didn't see that coming. But I didn't either. And it hurt. All my kids are grown, they all have lives. I was working, and I thought I had really kind of turned things around for myself, gotten more peaceful life, gotten more balanced, and then again there's my life showing its true colors, and the fact that I just have a piece of shit life. So yeah, that was not fun. But I didn't know it at the time, but I guess it was kind of the best thing that could have happened, because I had come a long way. I had settled into my peaceful life. I had, um, it's not like I was not able to have fun. It was just I had mellowed out quite a bit, so to speak. And it kind of opened the door, I guess, for a different life, a different challenge. So anyway, JK kind of leads in to the next episode, which I'm going to kind of give a little bit of preliminary history right now. And this is something I very rarely talk about. Very rarely talk about. But while I was working at the doctor's office, I knew I was pre-diabetic. I knew I had high blood pressure. I had been seen by a cardiologist. And I had been diagnosed with possibly mitral valve prolapse. I say possibly because I actually was diagnosed with it back then, but it turned out that that was not what the Nashville doctors had decided upon once I got to Nashville, which that comes on in the story, on down the story. But basically, at that time in my life, my blood pressure was sky high. Yes, I had gained some weight, and technically, by the BMI, I was obese for my height, for my age. I was not in the best of health. And I've been fighting my weight for years. I go on a diet. I have somewhat of a weight loss, and then once you're on the diet and you go off the diet, you gain it back. But overall, I would say, in my opinion, I always thought of myself as heavy, but not like unlivable heavy. Like you see people that are really, really incapacitated. And my uncle actually had gotten that way. So when I look at somebody heavy, I see them as, are they heavy but can still maneuver and manage life? Or are they so incapacitated that they can hardly move and need assistance, And my uncle got that way. But I know people that knew me thought, oh, she would be so happy if she lost like 50 pounds. Of course I would have. To be honest, I don't know anybody that's overweight by like 50 pounds that would say, oh, I'm fine with my weight. Even people that say that are celebrities or that are well-to-do people, they're like, oh, even like the big models. I know they're doing good in life. They're representing people that are heavier like myself. But I grant you that their inside the person that's inside them. Even though they're able to support themselves, they're doing far better than me if they're a plus size model. I think they secretly do want to lose that weight. I mean, you see celebrities like Adele, like Al Roker, there's so many celebrities out there that you see that have lost an amazing amount of weight, and they are telling their stories. And even if it has to do with gastric bypass or the sleeve or any of those things, they're telling their story and they're saying, it was the best thing for me. I still wanted to be here for my kids. I still wanted to be here for my family. It was time, and maybe like when they were heavy, they were saying, I'm fine with myself to people around them. And I think you can be kind of a little bit of both. I think you can be fine with yourself, which I always have been. But I think you can also be down on yourself because you know that 50 pounds lighter would be a game changer. 60 pounds would be a game changer. And I get it that somebody could lose 100 pounds and be like, if I lost 100 pounds, I would be tinier than I was as a teenager. And I don't strive to do that. I don't strive to lose 100 pounds, even at my height, which I'm pretty short. I'm like right at 5 feet. And that's stretching it, to say the least, too, right at 5 feet. But if I weighed only like, let's say 105 pounds, I can't even remember that far back. Like when I looked the best when I was overseas, when I looked at my best, I was like 100 and let's say 125. And I was balanced everywhere. My weight was perfect in my eyes everywhere. But, and looking back, I was like, this was before my son was born, so it would have been like, when I was 29, 28, 29. And I looked better then than I did farther back. I think personally I looked better then than farther back. But yeah, I haven't probably weighed in the range of 100 to 110 since I was a teen. But anyway, I don't know how we got off on that, but I was going through a lot with medical. I was stressing out about the office. The doctor I worked for was predominantly, he was sarcastic and could be actually mean. He was greedy. He was bordering bipolar. He had issues. One day he might give me a compliment. The next day he would be on me for something. I actually lost a tooth one time and he just went on and on and on about it, about how that had to be fixed or I couldn't be in the front office. And of course, I didn't want to have a front tooth missing. I was getting it fixed. I just needed to have the funds to get it fixed. And that took a little bit. And actually, my dad helped me get it fixed. But he, 1 minute would be okay, and then the next minute be sarcastic on me, pushing me. It was like a roller coaster ride. And I even told my doctor, if my blood pressure is up, trust me, there's a reason. And when I first started working for him, he was a lot better. But over the years, he'd gotten so unbalanced as a person and troubling to be around. But of course, if you have a decent job, you're not going to give it up. You have bills to pay, you have things to do. I was doing all that I could to work every single day. There was a time where I never missed a day. Never. Not even one day. Actually, there's a truth in saying that if you don't have school children or children that go to daycare or little children, period, and you are older, you live a more quiet life and stuff, you can actually kind of count your blessings when it comes to colds and flus and things like that, viruses, because a lot of those things spread through schools and children in the first place. I know that sounds horrible to say, but it's true. If you're an older person or you have an older family member and they pretty much stay to themselves at home, they barely get out, then they can stay a little bit more away from flus and viruses and things that would cause you to miss work. That is true. I don't care how you take it, but it's really true. So after my kids all grew up and I didn't have any small children around, I was doing okay as far as viruses and flus. But as far as blood pressure, it was skyrocketing. But I attributed most of it to the pressure that I was under. Even though my cardiologist had said that I was basically going into cardiac failure. And he said, when you get older, you're starting to see it now, but when you get much older, you're going to have some real problems with cardiac failure, which you already know as a nurse that you'll just basically work your heart too much, and eventually you'll have some serious medical problems. Same thing with diabetes. Them telling me I was pre-diabetic and should watch my diet was not the most great thing to hear as a nurse, because it's hard to watch your diet when you're working all the time and you're living off of, snack food that comes out of a machine, or you're grabbing a sandwich where you can, or you're eating big meals for your dinner meals. It's hard to watch your diet. And so, yeah, all that kind of started to play in. We had, like I had previously said, in the office, it was basically the doctor, his wife, and me. And his wife was a nurse, and I was a nurse and an office manager. And then it was him, who was a physician and a surgeon. But we fluctuated through different people. And the last person that we had became a very good friend of mine. She was so pretty, such a pretty woman, and so fun to be around. And me and her hit it off, and we became good friends. She was having ex issues with child support, and mostly child visitation and custody of her children. And nobody that ever worked in the office, except for me, worked really full time. Everybody else kind of had shifting hours, and they weren't like there all the time. And unfortunately for her, or I guess you would say sadly for her, she was not unlike the other ones, or some of the other ones, that noticed a difference in the physician. She noticed that he was like a bordering bipolar person, and that one minute everything was fine, the next minute everything wasn't. And she knew that some of this stuff, she wasn't stupid. Unfortunately, the physician that I worked for thought that other than him and his wife, most everybody that was coming in and out of our office, as far as personnel, was just a country bumpkin, including myself, who just did office work. And that's the most we were motivated to do, which is not true. But he saw us as just country, really, truly unskilled compared to his wife being an RN and him, which I am not an RN. Let me just get that straight. I've been a nurse for many, many years, and I've worked in every capacity. But when I started nursing, I was in RN school eventually, and I didn't go because I ended up going to Germany, which was stupid and something I wish I could take back. I had a place, I was doing good, I was working as an EMT and a nurse. I was motivated and I had a step through the door. But it just didn't materialize and I never became an RN. But I've worked in just about every capacity. I've worked in ER, I've worked in surgery, I've worked in maternity, I've worked in med surge, I've done claims, I've done electronic health records, I've been an office manager, I've been a floor nurse, I've worked in nursing homes, I've worked in hospitals, I've worked in clinics, I worked pediatrics. There's a lot of stuff I did over the years, but I've been in healthcare for like 43 years. And I've done medical articles and done well as freelancing article writing. And yeah, I've done just about everything else. But I never finished my RN. And a lot of my friends who became RNs ended up becoming nurse practitioners, which I'm really jealous of because I would have made an awesome nurse practitioner. Everybody that knows me says I would have made an awesome doctor because I took to healthcare and learned so much under everybody I've ever worked for, including nurse RNs and supervisors and physicians. And I've managed a good life in healthcare. I've set goals for myself and I've done pretty good, except for the fact that I did not progress the way I wish I had. Things would have been a lot different for me if I had of. But anyway, but the girl that I ended up working with was absolutely the sweetest and funnest person that I've ever been around. And me and her hit it off and we were really good friends. But, and now I'm kind of going to tell you a little bit about what the next episode is about. So, she was having trouble going through custody battle with her ex, and she'd also been going through a lot with the physician that we worked for, and she knew that I was too, and she knew that JK had left. She knew that I was having a lot of issues because of that, and that I was really sad. But I did good at the office. I tried my best to be on top of all the claims and paperwork that I had to do to carry on what the doctor had envisioned for himself. Let's just say that. So, anyway, to make a long story short, and then I'm going to stop this episode and then I will restart with the next episode. But to make a long story short, she had told me that she needed me as a character witness in her court battle. And I was like, sure, of course I would. Of course. And I said, but I don't know if he will let me off to do it. And she's like, oh, I'll tell him. So she said something about it, and he quickly shut it down. Oh, no, I could not leave. And we close up the office. I could not do that. No way, shape, or how could I do that. And she was like, yes, she can, because my attorney will subpoena her and she will have to come to court. And he was like, absolutely not. And he yanked her into the office and he told her if she did that, she would be let go. Which to me, it was like, that's completely illegal, I would think. And I guess they had words. There was an issue about it. And she left for the day. But yeah, that's exactly what happened. I got subpoenaed. I had to be there in court, and I called the physician and his wife, and I said, I got subpoenaed. I got to go to court. So you're going to have to come up here to the office if you want it to stay open, or I'll just close it. I mean, I've been here all morning. I'll just close it and then put a sign on the door that will reopen tomorrow for whatever reason you want me to put on there. And he was like, no, we'll come to the office. So they came up to the office. I mean, to him, it was like missing $1. Missing one phone call from one person that wanted an appointment was worth putting not only me, but her for sure through hell. That was his perspective on it. He had said, absolutely not. I could not be a character witness. I could not be subpoenaed. And she had gone against him. And he was fit to be tied. Like, literally fit to be tied. And I went to court. I was there. I told her a little bit. I felt bad for telling her on the day that her custody battle with her ex was being decided. She looked amazing. And she was trying to stand up for herself against her ex. And I felt bad for her. But I honestly, it turned out that, it was in the cards how it fell. And I won't go into any of that because that's not my story to tell. But I went back to work. They had already kind of left for me to finish the day up because the day was over anyway. And I went home, and the next day when she came in, he abruptly called her in the office and in his office and gave her her walking papers. And she was fit to be tied. And I don't blame her at all. I do not blame her at all. for being so upset at him, because this was her children and she was in a court battle and she was just trying to win it. And it was a hard case. And it may not have been anything that I said or did, but she wanted me there. And it's better to have me there than to have me not there. And so, and I really didn't even offer that much, other than the fact that I was over her at work. Plus, I was a friend and was around her a lot with her children and did my best to speak for her, or speak up for her, I would say. But yeah, she immediately got canned. And I remember when she was getting her stuff and leaving, she whispered to me, "If you don't do something, I am going to." And she left. And I remember the doctor and his wife really thinking that she was going to blow the whistle on him. And I'm going to leave it there, because that right there says it all. But I'm going to leave it there and say that that was a turning point for me. There's a lot more to the physician's story that I'll get into in the next episode, but I'm going to leave it there for right now. And thank you for listening. Please continue to listen. There's a lot more to my life, and I don't even know how this Ferris wheel or roller coaster, I would say, of my life has continued to play out. I just can't even put into words, because that would be the best way to say it, is that my life has been a roller coaster ride. And just as in the title, All Apologies, Guilt, and Blame, I take full guilt and blame for everything that's ever happened in my life. I have led a wild life, and one that I'm not necessarily proud of. I've done a lot of things that I wish I could take back. I've led a very chaotic and troubling life that I wish that I hadn't. Okay, I'm going to leave it here, and I will talk to you later. Thank you for listening.